All right, welcome everybody. Let's look at some things we talked about in class today. We're going to be working on today converting numbers or converting equations from standard form to slope-intercept form so that we can graph them on the coordinate plane. Remember, this is the key we talked about today. We're not actually solving an equation for a number. We're just rearranging it to isolate the y variable so we can graph the equation using slope-intercept form. Okay, and really there's only two steps to do this. Is you move the x variable on one side of the equation to the other side by adding or subtracting the opposite, and then divide both sides of the equation by the number in front of the y variable. And the reason I highlighted the word front is you got to make sure that if it's a negative number that we want to divide by a negative number, because we always want to make sure that the y variable is positive so that we can make sure it is in correct slope-intercept form. And if you remember, slope-intercept form is with the y variable isolated, which is y mx plus b, where m is my slope and b is the y-intercept. So we can graph that, and notice the y is positive, so that's very important that you make sure that you divide by whatever's in front of the y variable. Okay, so let's look at a couple problems. We're going to do 3 or 4. Okay, all right, we got our first problem, 3x plus 3y. So remember, in standard form, the x and the y variable are on the same side of the equation. So we want to make this look like the slope-intercept form by isolating this y variable. We want to get this guy by itself, which means we need to move this side, and then we're eventually going to divide by this 3. Okay, so let's see how we do this. So remember, we talked about drawing our line to divide the equation, and we're just going to take and isolate this by dividing this, by moving this 3x. Well, this says plus 3x, so the additive inverse of that would be to take the opposite, would be to subtract 3x. Okay, notice I took all of that with me, and what I'm wanting to do here, I'm wanting to cross this out. I'm wanting this to be 0, so that's going to cross out. That's going to be 0, and this is going to leave me with 3y. All right, well, when we get to this side, please right here, don't be tempted to add these two together. Remember, we talked about this. This one gets a circle because it is just the integer, and this one has a variable, so we cannot combine the box and the circle. So I want to add this down here. I want to write down, I want to write it just as it's written in the boxes. Well, this is a plus 3. So now we've got it looking like slope-intercept form. Y is equal to something x plus b. Well, we're not finished yet because we have a number right here in front of the y. So we're going to divide by that number. Okay, so we've moved the x. Now let's divide by the y. So we're going to divide both sides, divide everything. Now sometimes you may see some people draw this all the way across and just write 1, 3 right here. Means the same thing, but I like to show it as separate parts. Okay, this is going to cross out. So I have y is equal to, now right here, we need to reduce this fraction when I rise over our run for our slope. 3 divided by 3 is 1x, and then a negative divided by a positive is a negative. Okay, and the same thing here. 3 divided by 3 is 1. Positive divided by a positive is a positive. So my equation is y equals negative 1x plus 1. Well, remember, if we're looking for this on a test or something, we're looking for y is, you're not going to see that 1. You're actually going to see minus x plus 1. So now we can graph this if we needed to, and if we would identify the parts to this, remember the y-intercept would be plus 1, and my slope would be 1 over 1, and it's negative. Okay, so remember, we would rise 1, run left 1. Okay, so all you're doing is just rearranging. You're not solving for an actual number, you're just rearranging. Okay, let's try another one. All right, this time I have a negative x, and but I have a positive y. So let's see what we're going to do here. So again, we're going to take the inverse of this, the additive inverse. So the opposite of minus 5x is plus 5x. So we're going to do it to both sides of the equation. Okay, I'm going to cross that out, bring down the 8y. Now again, I always like to circle this, and let's box this. That way we can make sure we don't try to be tempted to combine these two. So 5x plus 24. All right, so we've moved the x. Now let's divide by the number in front of the y. In this case, it's the 8, so that's going to cross out. So I'm left with y is equal to 5 over 8 cannot be reduced, so we're just going to write it down, 5 over 8x. Okay, and then both of those are positive, so this is going to stay positive. Now here, 24 divided by 8 is 3, plus positive divided by positive is a positive. Okay, so here is my y-intercept, and here's my slope. Okay, don't get this confused with this up here. I'm just going to show you. It's easy to write it. All right, let's go to this one. Okay, now this is what we talked about a while ago. We have a ghost, so we're going to fill in the 1 there, that we have something to divide by. All right, so the steps are the same. Move the x. Okay, so we're going to move the x, cross it out. So I have negative 1y is equal to, again, circle this, put a box, that way we're not tempted to combine that and make that a 10x, okay? So I have negative 11x plus 21. All right. Well, now we're looking over here. The next step is to divide by whatever's in front of that y. Well, if I look here, there is a 1, but it's a negative 1. Okay, so we're going to divide everything by negative 1. All right. This is going to cross out, and that makes my y stay positive. Now, 11 divided by 1 is 11. Negative divided by negative is a positive. Okay, so it's 11x. Now, 21 divided by 1 is 21, but positive divided by negative is a negative. Okay, so here is my y-intercept, and here is my slope. Okay, when that's your rise, your run would be over 1. Okay, so it's just rearranging these equations to fit it so we can graph it. All right, let's look at this one. Okay, so we're going to subtract the 9x. Oh, let's do this part. Okay, subtract the 9x. Cross out, because 9x minus 9x is actually 0. So 5y is equal to, and again, I've got to do this first. Let's circle that. Let's box that. All right, so minus 9x plus 15. And again, y'all, I just do this just to keep myself to realize that I cannot combine these two numbers, because this one doesn't have a variable and this one does. Okay, all right, let's divide everything by what's in front of that y. In this case, it's a positive 5. Crosses out. Y is going to equal 9 over 5. I cannot reduce, so, and it's a negative divided by positive, so let's just bring everything down just like it is. And then the last step, positive 15 divided by positive 5 is a positive 3. All right, there's my y-intercept, and there's my slope. So move the x, divide by the y. Same step, it's just repetition. Okay, all right, let's look at this one. All right, we got two numbers equal 0. So let's see how this is going to work out. All right, so we're going to add the opposite to get that to be 0, and we're going to add the opposite. Okay, so we're going to cross out here. So I have negative 2y is equal. Now, I know you're tempted right. Nothing plus 7x is going to be 7x. Okay, well, let's keep it here, because we're going to have a y-intercept anyway. So let's keep it like this. And what we've been doing is stay with a pattern. Okay, so 7x plus 0. All right, so now we've moved the x. Now let's divide by the y. So pay careful attention here. There's a negative here, right? So negative 2, negative 2, negative 2. This way, this stays a positive y. Nothing wrong with it if you do it, but what you end up with is a negative y, and it creates one more step. So always make sure you divide by that negative as well. Okay, 7 over 2 cannot be reduced. So positive divided by negative is a negative 7 over 2x, plus 0 divided by negative 2. Well, 0 divided by anything is 0. So technically this equation is y equals negative 7 over 2x. Okay, but there's your y-intercept, and there is your slope. Okay, all right. I think that's the last one, but I want to do one because we didn't do one that has to reduce. Let's see if we can do one that's reducing. What if I say something like 3x plus 9y equals 27. All right, let's try this. So we're going to move the 3x. We're going to move the 3x. Crosses out. So I have 9y is equal to negative 3x plus 27. So we've moved the x. Now let's divide by the y. Well, this case is just a positive 9, so we're going to divide everything by 9. All right, that's going to cross out. So y is going to equal 3 over 9 will reduce. Now, because the greatest common factor, if I come over here, 3 over 9 will reduce, and the greatest common factor of 3 and 9 is 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 9 divided by 3 is 3. So this is going to reduce to 1/3 x, and a positive divided by a negative is a negative. Alright, now we're finished with that, so my slope has been reduced. Now 27 divided by 9, both of them are positive, so that's going to be plus 3. There's your y-intercept. There's your slope. Okay? So it's basically just a recap. Let's go all the way back to the front, and that's basically all we're doing is just doing a little rearranging. Okay, we're not solving for anything. We're not solving for a number. We are just simply rearranging the equation to get the y variable by itself, so we can graph it. And the two steps are move the x variable to the other side and divide both by the number in front of the y variable. That will make sure that the y variable stays positive. Okay? All right. Study hard, do well, and we're going to have a quiz tomorrow, and I expect everyone to do their usual great scores, and we'll see you tomorrow.